Namaskar. The Bhagavad Gita is a life changing force. It empowers us to rise above challenges. Come experience its wisdom with Mrs. Jaya Rao in the United States. Jayaji is one of the world's most influential speakers. She has spoken at the World Economic Forum, Apple, Google, MasterCard, and many more. Now she brings the timeless wisdom through topics like Awaken the Leader in You, Science of Success, 5 Secrets to Happy Relationships, and more. Host a seminar for your company or community during Jayaji's visit. Call or WhatsApp us at +91 98202 32939 to organize a talk near you. Here is her US schedule: New Jersey, New York, April 5th and 6th; Washington, D.C., Virginia, Maryland, April 7th to 10th; Atlanta, April 11th to 13th; Dallas, April 14th to 19th; Houston, April 20th to 22nd; the Bay Area, April 24th to 28th; New Jersey, New York, April 30th to May 4th. I now invite Jayaji for the final class on Chapter 2.
ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
There's a question, and that question is about Formula 64, the formula for self-control. What is it? So we had seen there are 2 ways in which we exercise self-control. What are they?
Experience should end in that experience only, and we should not linger on it.
Okay. And the other? Sorry? Regulate
And manage your desires.
Can you specify it?
Desire should not be immediately acted upon. It should be through intellect.
Correct. So, there are 2 methods by which we exercise self-control. One is that, let's say you have a desire for what? Give an example. Huh?
For mangoes.
Sorry? Okay.
Rambutan.
Huh?
You had given an example of rambutan. That's fruit.
So let's say he gave the example, you have a desire to eat pani puri. Now, if you act immediately on that desire, that the desire itself propels you to action, then what happens? You eat the pani puri. At the end of that experience, that it boomerangs back on you as one more desire for pani puri. You get it? So one desire is fulfilled, one unit of that desire is fulfilled, but more units are added through that one experience. So you're violating self-control. What must you do? You have a desire for pani puri, consult the intellect. Suppose the situation is such that your intellect says, you haven't eaten pani puri for a long time, you are in good health, you haven't been eating junk food, you've been a very disciplined person, so it's perfectly okay to eat pani puri today. Then what happens? You go ahead with that experience, you enjoy the pani puri thoroughly because there's no guilt there. And the experience ends there. It doesn't boomerang back as one more desire. So, in this case, even though you have fulfilled the desire, you have enjoyed the object of desire, you have not violated self-control. Got it? If you live your life like this, with every experience, what will happen? Your desires will get fulfilled. That means they will come to fruition. And no more desires will be added in your system. So you will become that much more purified. Yeah, you have a question?
Same thing to be done on the next day. I'm taking this experience is over. The next day, if I want, I still have a desire for the pani puri. And if I ask the same questions again, still the answer is yes. Should I control at that point in time, or regulate it, or block it?
No, we are saying you follow intellectual conviction. He just wants authority that he can keep eating pani puri. Okay, at some point, third day, your intellect will say, enough beta, that's it. So, the second is what she said, you may not have eaten that, you may not have experienced it. First time in your life, you're experiencing something new. And that is the example I gave of rambutan. Does anyone here know what rambutan is? Yeah. It's a fruit that is somewhat like lychee, but much larger and sweeter. So, let's say you go to Singapore or Thailand and you taste this rambutan. For the first time in your life, you've eaten it. So, you eat it, you enjoy it thoroughly, and at the end of that experience, if you come back to Bombay with the mind lingering in the enjoyment, you say, I like rambutan, what a lovely fruit it is. Maybe I can carry it back home with me. And once you come to Mumbai, you say, where is rambutan available? All of this. So that one experience sets you off on a completely different trail of thought. And at the end of it, you acquire a desire for rambutan. You have violated self-control. But if you eat it and you end experience with experience, you move to the next experience and enjoy that experience. Then what happens? You are in self-control and your enjoyment gets enhanced because every moment of your life you're enjoying. When your mind is lingering in a past enjoyment, you can't enjoy it. You're only thinking about it. So you're creating desire, not fulfilling it. So it's a lose-lose situation. You get it? So every experience, you meet with it afresh, enjoy it 100%, move to the next experience. Don't linger. Otherwise, if you linger in the enjoyment, you reduce yourself to a cow. You know what a cow does? It eats, swallows, but that's not the end of it. So the cow is grazing the whole day. When it comes back in the evening to the shed, it regurgitates the food and chews it and then swallows it again. Only then is the food digested. Now we are human beings, we are not supposed to regurgitate experiences. If you relive or linger in the enjoyment of a past experience, it amounts to regurgitating the food. How horrible is it? Can you imagine from the stomach the food comes back into your mouth and you chew it and swallow it again? Can't even imagine. It's horrible. But that's what you're doing with experiences. So every new experience, and you may come across many new experiences, you add one more desire. You're violating self-control. Now, incidentally, so this is formula 64. You get it? Number one, existing desire should not directly lead you to fulfillment. It should go through the intellect. It should be scanned by the intellect. And then you can enjoy it. Number two, a fresh experience should not create a new surge of desire within you. As long as you fulfill these two, you can consume, you can contact the world to any extent. No limit to that. However much you want, you can enjoy. As many different things as you want, you can enjoy. You're not violating self-control, provided the intellect is in place. So you see it in both the self-controls. It is the intellect that makes the difference. Intellect keeps you in the present and cuts your thought flow going to the past. Intellect ensures that it scans your desire and decides whether you should fulfill it or not. And then your enjoyment actually enhances, it goes up to 100% and it retains there. Otherwise, what is happening is you get neutralized to every enjoyment. If there is no intellectual participation, every experience, every time you experience the same object, your enjoyment of that object reduces by this much. If you indulge indiscriminately in it, and then you reach a stage where it no longer gives you enjoyment, but when you're denied it, it gives you displeasure. So we have got neutralized to so many things in life. You've got neutralized to air conditioning. When it's there, it's not as if you're exhilarated. But when it's not there, you're miserable. You have a car. When it's there, you're comfortable. It's not as if you're deliriously happy. But when it's not there, you are positively uncomfortable. Like this, we go on accumulating things, indiscriminately indulging in things in such a way that we lose the enjoyment completely. The more affluent you are, the greater the chances of your indiscriminate enjoyment. And so, particularly in affluent countries, where everybody has everything, there is no enjoyment. Food is available, plenty, in abundance, and cheap, reasonably cheap. Basic comforts are given to everyone. And if you're jobless, you get what is it called? You're on the dole. Government pays you money. So you have no problems. But you've got neutralized to it. Which is why they are searching for something more, something different, because it's stalemate. So you should watch out against that. Okay? Yeah.
I have a question. Shouldn't the actions, the karmas that we do, die with the mortal body which is performing these karmas?
Yeah. So the question is, action is performed by the body, not by the spirit. And when I die, I leave behind my body and the spirit moves on. So why is it that I have to pay for my action? The body is gone. In short, she's saying, I should be able to do whatever I want now and not pay for it. There are some basic errors in the question itself. See, when you say the body is mortal, the body is performing action, it's not just the body. It is the body, mind and intellect. So the law of karma is not just what physical actions you perform. It is more about what you think, what you feel, how you feel, and action. So it's more about thoughts. Now, when death occurs, what happens is the body is there. Spirit is also there because spirit is all pervading. What is moving is your inner personality, mind, intellect, vasanas. They get pulled out from this body and move to another body in the medium of Atman, spirit. It's like there is a frame and a mirror in the frame. Now, and there is sunlight. So there is a reflected sun in that mirror. Now, suppose you remove the mirror from this frame and put it in another frame. The reflected sun is dead in this frame, is born in the next frame. So what carries the reflected sun is the mirror. Similarly, it is our inner personality that is moving. The body is only your outer personality. So it's like saying, I change my clothes. Now you're wearing certain clothes, you go home, you change clothes. But it's the same you, right? You can't say whatever I did while I was wearing these clothes, I leave behind and move on. It's you. Okay?
How can you distinguish between attachment and true love?
Question is, how can you distinguish between attachment and true love? For which you need to understand what is attachment. What is attachment? Love plus selfishness is attachment. So what is true love? What you call as love now, minus selfishness, is true love. So what is the difference? Selfishness. Now how does this selfishness manifest? See, you treat a relationship, you treat the other person as if he or she were born only to serve you. He has no other business in life except to serve me. And that person is not your servant. He or she is another individual. He has his own selfishness. He has his own desires. So, you are setting yourself up for conflict, for a lot of turbulence because there's a clash between your desires and the other person's desires. And sooner or later that relationship will break up. So this happens, you see it. Employer, employee, siblings, friends though don't talk. Husband, wife, you know what the story is. So why are relationships breaking up more? You take the past. In the past, in India, there were joint families where 35, 40 members of a family lived together under one roof harmoniously. Can you imagine what would happen if 45 of us were to live under one roof? We'd kill each other because of too many strong desires, too much of selfishness. So, and not only in India, in China also had the same system, borrowed from us maybe. Even in the West, although they never had the joint family system, they had a close-knit family bonds. And generations of employees worked for generations of employers. So if the grandfather of the servant worked for the grandfather of the boss, then the son, grandson, it just continued. Attrition was very low, even among multinational companies. I know so many people who retired at their first jobs. Now it's unheard of. Where do you see a person retire at their first job? Now, why is this happening? Because of extreme selfishness. And so you take the stand, it's my way or the highway. In other words, you follow what I demand, otherwise, out. There is no such thing as voluntarily, willingly, happily giving in to the other person's preferences. So, and you see this, like a lady came and told me, why must I give in to my husband all the time? And you know what the truth is? The truth is that the husband gives in to her all the time. But she feels that she is giving in. It's when you're selfish, it's a lose-lose situation all the way. So you've got to hold it back. How? With simple things. Like, you must understand you can't get what you like all the time. In anything, whether it's the weather, or vacation, or the job. You see, no job is going to be exciting all the time. Have you heard of anybody whose job is highly exciting all the time? No. Why? Because everybody's job or work entails hard work and includes doing things that you don't like. Like you take all the stars. What did you mention? Coldplay. It's not just going there to 1 lakh people and having a good time there. To be able to sing like that, how many hours of practice you must put in? How much you have to, there's a lot of self-denial to keep your vocal cords in top condition. You can't eat what you want, you can't drink what you want, you can't, there's so many things that you have to do, all of which you may not like. You don't like. I was reading somewhere that this athlete, what is his name? Athlete, international athlete. He ran a race for 1 minute and he earned $15 million for that race. $15 million. Now, what the person was saying is that Usain Bolt won a race, and that race lasted something like 1 minute. I don't remember the exact details. And he earned $15 million. Now, you might say, for 1 minute he earned $15 million. No. You know what that $15 million for that, what he had to pay? 20 years of sacrifice, of hard work. So it's not all hunky-dory. No field is like that. So right from the beginning, you must understand that in the world, everything will not be to your liking. So if you get food that you don't like today, don't complain. Even within your mind. Look at the positive side. You get boiled food today. It's very good for my body. It's excellent for my health. Tell yourself that. You get food without salt. Arey wow. क्या मजा है. How? I'm tasting the vegetable. Or I'll eat less because it's not tasty. It's good for me, I'll lose weight. You always have to look at the positive side. And then you get prepared for these pairs of opposites. And if you rise above them, it won't affect you. It's your attitude. Now, I believe there was an Englishman in Chennai in the peak of summer. Everyone was sweating. He was a teacher in school. And the students were all doing this, with paper, huffing and puffing. So he said, "Come on, kids, all of you, out." Out in the hot sun. And he made them stand there for a few minutes without saying anything. And at the end of it, he threw his arms up in the air and says, "Oh, what a beautiful summer." And then he called them back in class and said, gave them a lecture. The beauty of the summer is its heat and humidity and the sweating. The beauty of the winter is its biting cold. The beauty of whatever. He went on and on, giving both positives and negatives. And at the end he said, the beauty of my wife is that she nags and nags and nags. See, all the men are smiling here. Or at least whichever men are smiling, you know what they're going through. So that's it. That's how you inculcate this. And then it doesn't affect you. And you feel so powerful because how can the weather affect your mood? How can good food or bad food make a difference to you the way you view life? And all of us must do that. So, the higher up you go, the more affluent you get, the more powerful you get, the richer you get. Like for instance, the Prime Minister, do you think he will ever be given food that is not good? Or that's not to his taste? Everyone will give, the higher up you go, everyone will give you food that you like, everyone will do things that you like. So you must be careful and make sure that you consciously do things which cause a little inconvenience to you. There was a guy, a very wealthy person, who lived on Malabar Hill near Hanging Gardens. So once in a way, he would tell his driver, "You take the car and go to the office. I'll come on my own." You know what he would do? He would get into a bus at Hanging Gardens, BST bus, and come all the way down. When it was crowded, he would go standing, getting jostled. Chairman of a company. And get down at the stop and go walk to his office. Why would he do that? Because he wanted to experience what it is to travel without the car. And then when he sat in the car on the way back, enjoyed it. That we never experience. Consciously choose food that you don't like. You don't like Karela? Ask for it one day. Karela. There, see? That's how you develop a taste for it. It's actually tasty. Okay? Any other question?
That means our Atman consists of mind, intellect, and vasanas.
No. Atman does not consist of mind, intellect, and vasanas. You have spirit, which is Atman, and matter. Matter is body, mind, intellect, and vasanas. Body is gross matter, mind, intellect, subtle matter. Vasanas is called causal body. So it's not quite matter because it's beyond the intellect. It's definitely not spirit. What is it? Ignorance. So let's say there is a snake lying, when you go down in the dark, there's a snake there. In the darkness, you don't see the snake as a snake. You're ignorant of the snake. So this ignorance of the snake can manifest as a misapprehension of either you see it as a rope or you see it as a crack in the earth or whatever. So it is a question of spirit. You are the spirit. When you don't know you're the spirit, that is vasana, it's ignorance, which then manifests as the waking state and dream state. So in the waking state, you have body, mind and intellect. In the dream state, you have only mind and intellect. And only vasanas means deep sleep state. Okay? So these are basics. This is technical language, technical knowledge, which you must know. Got it? So you said spirit is not vasanas, mind and intellect. It's subtle matter, but it's matter. Yeah.
You spoke about when you're focused on a goal, you have to go through self-denial, and it will become easy to the extent of your focus on the goal. So, how do you increase the determination for that goal that you have?
Yeah, see, you misunderstood slightly. When you fix a goal and you're working towards it, you have to go through hard work, which means there are certain things you have to deny yourself. You can't be hanging out with friends all the time, you can't be going to parties, you can't be eating junk food, you can't be, things like that. For an athlete or a tennis player or whatever, musician. How do you increase your commitment and determination? There are two ways. One is intellectual commitment to it. Yeah. So to the extent, like for instance, suppose an athlete says, I must win this for my country. That's the commitment to it, intellectual. Or I must break the record, or whatever it is. It's a goal fixed by the intellect and the intellect is focusing on it. The second is to reduce your resistance towards the discipline that you have to follow. You must love what you're doing. Very important. If you don't love what you're doing, you can't. You can't follow the discipline. So you fall short. Then you start making compromises because you like other things more than this. What is the name of that basketball player who died? Kobe Bryant. He was talking about the love for basketball. The first summer that he played, he didn't score a single point the entire summer. And then he says what kept him going was the love for it. And it's the same in anything. A mother loves her child. She goes, you think it's fun looking after a child? She goes through all that because she loves the child. The same work a babysitter doesn't like. She does it for the money. So there's drudgery, there's resistance. So where there's love, it flows. And then you're willing to do anything. So these are the two things that are required. And then your focus becomes sharper and sharper and sharper. Till, like Sri Ramakrishna, at the last stages, just all that he wanted it was God. And he continuously, consistently, whether he was awake or asleep or whatever it was, he was just thinking of God, nothing else. When you reach that stage, you become it. Whatever it is that you're thinking of. But it must be backed by intellectual focus. We are so far from that. There is neither intellectual focus nor love. It's just we are floating from one experience to another, one thing to another. And the moment you dislike something, you drop it. How will you ever succeed in life? Did you get it? So what the system is doing is to try to get you to like it. It doesn't work that way. Because your mind keeps changing. You like this one day, tomorrow you like something else. That's what's happening. Why are relationships breaking up? It's like a child, the 3-year-old child comes home from school and Mama, so-and-so is my best friend. 3 days later, the mother asks, well, how is this friend of yours, best friend? She is not my best friend. Arey, you said she was your best friend. That was then. Now somebody else is my best friend. It just changes. Now you can't follow the whims and fancies of the mind. Don't like it, stick with it. Provided your intellect has told you that this is the right thing to do, you are convinced that this field is the right field. You can't do that. In the past, musicians had to go through such rigor. The gurus would almost beat them up if they sang one note wrong. Tough. Life was tough then. Spiritual gurus, though, don't talk. They would finish you off if you made one mistake. Now everything is... So, if you don't want to be corrected, it is unpleasant. If you don't want to be corrected, fine, the person will leave you alone. But you don't benefit. What is it to a guru or a teacher? They do their job and they move on. You don't like it. Tough luck. But life is not going to be, is not going to treat you with kid gloves. Life will give you nicely. How does it work? Vishnu has 4 arms. In one arm, he has the lotus. Lotus represents the state of God realization, Atman, Brahman. That's the goal. In the second hand, he has a shankha. Have you heard that shankha? It's an amazing sound it makes. So that it represents your conscience that is constantly pulling you towards the higher, towards Atman. If you don't listen to that silent sound of your conscience, you get the gada. Have you seen the gada? Get a nice hard knock on the head. From life itself. And if you still don't correct yourself, you're so gross and so dumb that you don't learn even from that. Chakra. Chakra means complete destruction. Total annihilation. So you've got to keep this in mind. and say, if I don't, I want everything that I like, I want everything to say nice things to me, then you will get what you deserve. Because the people who are really honest, who really truly are well meaning, are not going to be pleasant all the time. This is the whole thing in Shakespeare's King Lear. King Lear, the king of England, had 3 daughters. Cordelia was the youngest, and 2 older daughters who were married. And when he reached the age of 80, I think, whatever age, he was old. He drew a huge map of England, called everyone, and divided. He said, I'm going to divide my kingdom into 3, one for each daughter. But before I actually hand over, I want to ask the 3 daughters one question. What do you think of me? So he asked the eldest daughter, and she went into poetry about how great the father was, and this, that, and the other. And actually, she didn't care for the father. She only wanted the kingdom. Second daughter, same thing. So she praised the father to the skies, but all false. And every time these 2 sisters praised the father, this youngest daughter was seething with rage. She was angry with the sisters for being false. She was angry with her father that he stooped to such a level and that he didn't see the truth. So when her time came, when the father asked her, and actually Cordelia was his favorite. He adored her. So he said, now my Cordelia, what do you think of me? What do you have to say? She said, nothing. He went into a rage. He said, nothing? Nothing comes from nothing. So he cut her off from his will and decided to divide the kingdom into 2 and give it to his older daughters. Cordelia didn't care. And then the king of France came and asked for her hand in marriage. So King Lear is saying, she's got nothing. Don't you know? I just cut her off from my will. And the king of France said, I want just her. She's worth more than your kingdom. And he married her and took her to France. And then what happened to King Lear? You all know the story. Slowly, bit by bit, the 2 sisters started cutting. Why do you need 40 horses? Why do you need so many servants? Why do you need this? Why do you need that? And they kept shoving the father to the other sister. Eventually, he was left alone in poverty, the king. And at that time, Cordelia said, oh, and the other thing was, she said, Father, now that I'm not married, so 100% of my loyalty is with you. But after I get married, 50% will be with my husband and 50% with you. So he gets even more angry and says, you're not even married and you're saying this. So when the father was in dire straits, she tells her husband, remember I said 50% with my father. My father needs me, I need to go back. And she goes back, and she's the only one who takes care of the father. This is it. So what is the message? Don't fall for sweet talk. It's the people who talk sweetly are the ones who are going to stab you in the back. You should be what, again Shakespeare said, plain, blunt man. Simple, blunt person, straightforward. Speak the truth. Truth may not be palatable to you. That's the way it is. Any other question? That was your question, right?
If you want to answer, I'm still fascinated by the concepts of intrinsic and extrinsic illusions.
Okay. What is intrinsic and extrinsic illusion? Now this has been explained, to the best of my knowledge, only by Swami Ramatirtha. So everyone says that the world is an illusion. It is a superimposition on Atman, Spirit, God. How does it work? So Swami Ramatirtha adds to the confusion and says there are not only one illusion, there are two illusions. So first, intrinsic illusion. You see a snake where there is a rope, right? In this, you see either one or the other, you can't see both. So you may see the rope, your friend will see the snake. And the properties, okay, so this is intrinsic illusion. Now the second is extrinsic illusion. There is an illusion, but the properties of the rope are projected onto the snake. So if the rope is 4 inches thick, 6 feet long, coiled and black in color, when you see the snake, how do you see the snake? You see the snake exactly like that. 6 feet long, 4 inches thick, black and coiled. So what is actually happening is the properties of the rope are mirrored in the snake. So there is the reality, there is the illusion and the properties which are the same. So this is called extrinsic illusion. This is like you stand in a mirror, because there is a medium that brings about this reflection. Like you stand before a mirror, there is you, there is the reflection, and the mirror is what creates that image. So there is the properties that are the same. Hang on. So use the same snake and rope example. The properties of the rope are projected onto the snake. That's what it is.
With reference to the rope and example, how do you explain it with reference to the world?
The world, we're coming to that. There is infinity, all pervasiveness, and creation is non-stop. So there was never a first father and there will never be a last son. It just goes on. These properties are of Brahman. Infinity, all pervasiveness is a property of Brahman which is reflected in the universe. Right? And the Brahman itself is the reflecting medium. Just as in snake, rope and snake, the rope itself is the reflecting medium. Now, intrinsic is where you see only one. Either you see the rope or the snake. You don't see both. In extrinsic, you see both because the properties are mirrored. See, you've had a problem on this since time immemorial. Because you're trying to capture it with the intellect. You cannot capture Atman with the intellect. You must just understand. Your intellect goes so far, up to that stage you understand. Why is he given both? Because whenever you see magnificence in the world, you see beauty in the world, you see divinity in the world, you are inspired by it. It is not a quality of the world, it is a quality of Brahman that is mirrored. So like Wonderful things you see, like a child smiling, such beauty in it. Even if the child is dirty, sometimes you see on the street a child just smiles. There's beauty in that. It goes beyond physical, it goes beyond the emotion. There's something about a person that sparks you off. That is Brahman. It's not the world. Okay? And then you must understand, intrinsic is like either you're dreaming or you're awake. You can't be both. So you keep telling yourself, this is swapnavat, like a dream. And someday I hope I'll wake up to reality. With this, you become objective in life. You're not like so involved that even a passing. You know what happens in India? The other day there was an accident at the airport. And more than the accident itself, it's all the people who are gathering there. And so I just casually asked a person, what are you seeing? What are you looking at? Accident. So where is what happened? Nothing, you can't see anything. You can only see a car that is damaged. And they're just standing there for half an hour. And then they take sides. No, this is this one's fault. And they don't know either driver. Now, if you are so bad that you get involved in something that has nothing to do with you or your life, why can't you just move on and allow the police and the ambulance and the people concerned to take care of it? You add to the confusion. This is complete lack of objectivity. Your neighbor has a fight with his wife, you start taking sides. What have you got to do with it? It's complete lack of objectivity. Then how can you be objective with reference to your own life? So every time you get affected, you should keep telling yourself, this is like a dream. How would you view it if you were in a dream, you wake up and re-enter the dream, knowing fully well that it's a dream? Let's say, for instance, now 26th January has just passed. You have been announced as the Bharat Ratna recipient. And the government of India has called you to Delhi at their expense. And you have to go, they have to rehearse how they will come up to the president and receive the Bharat Ratna, whatever award they're getting. And you rehearse and you've done everything perfectly, preparation. And on the appointed day, your name is announced and you start walking towards the president to accept the Bharat Ratna. Where is all this happening? In the dream. As you're walking towards the president, you're so excited, you trip, fall. Then what happens? You wake up. After waking up, suppose you had the power to go back into the same dream, which you don't, I'm asking you to imagine. Exactly at the same spot where you had fallen and woken up. How would you conduct yourself? Would you get up and say, hey guys, all this is an illusion, wake up? You'll get arrested. What will you do? You play the game. So you'll quietly get up, go to the president, accept your Bharat Ratna, give your acceptance speech, come back and lights will be flashing, everyone will be honoring you. You go through all your experiences, tongue in cheek. This is a beautiful phrase in English. You've heard that, right? Tongue in cheek means not literally, not like that, but objectively. As if you're not part of it, you're apart from it. You're just watching what's happening. What fun it is. Try that. One experience. You're going back after class today, and what happens? There's someone who cuts into you, and there's a slight collision with another car. One little scratch appears in your car. How do you view it? Do you get do you get angry and say, or do you just say, these things happen and move on? That's the thing. Now we'll move to verse 69. No, we've done 69, right?
Yeah.
70.
आपूर्यमाणम् अचलप्रतिष्ठम् समुद्रमाप प्रविशन्ति यद्वत् तद्वत् कामायं प्रविशन्ति सर्वे स शान्तिमाप्नोति न कामकामी.
As the ocean which filled from all sides with waters entering it remains still, so one in whom all objects of desire enter obtains peace, not the kamakami, not the desirer of desires. So this verse has been physically taken from the Kathopanishad, Mundaka Upanishad. And in that, through this verse, he is actually giving the formula for happiness. The formula for happiness, you've all heard it. Do you know it? What is it?
Desires harbored upon desires harbored upon desires fulfilled.
अरे वाह, उल्टा किया.
Increase the numerator and decrease.
Formula for happiness means happiness equals what?
Fulfilled upon desire and harbour.
Excellent. Happiness equals number of desires fulfilled divided by number of desires harbored. Simple formula. So if you go by the formula, you want to increase your happiness, what must you do? Increase the numerator, increase the number of desires you're fulfilling, and reduce the denominator. Now the numerator, even mathematically, is irrelevant. It doesn't matter how low the numerator is. What really determines the answer is the denominator. If you systematically bring down the denominator, your happiness keeps increasing exponentially. And when the denominator comes down to 0, what happens? Infinite happiness. That's what you're looking for. You will never be satisfied with finite. And you will never get infinity as long as you're focusing on the numerator. So all of us are looking at what? Numerator. We're trying our best to fulfill desires. And we still feel the same emptiness, the same. So why is it that in spite of fulfilling desires, your happiness doesn't increase, is something you need to think very carefully about. The answer is there. It's because with every experience, you may fulfill 1 or 2 desires. So the numerator goes up, but the denominator jumps. And you don't realize it. And the system is based on desires. So you must understand, the economies are running on desires. Suppose you stop buying, what's going to happen to the economy? And that is why when even in the United States, when the economy took a slight downturn, the President of the United States was telling people, buy more, have more, want more. So you got to stand up to it and say, I will not fall for this. Keep reducing. How do you reduce desires?
Higher goal.
Huh?
Have a higher goal.
Correct. Upgrade your desires. Yeah? Upgrade your desires. So let's say at the physical level you have so many desires. You want to eat, you want to smell, you want clothes, you want perfume, you want so many things. When you go to the emotional, instantly what happens? Your material desires go, then you are left with very few emotional desires. Then you go to the intellectual level. Let's say you're working for the country. Huh? Then you become subservient, you put your desires at a lower level than the country's, which means 1.4 crore Indians take precedence over your personal desires. And you find fulfillment, happiness in that. Finally, spiritual is one desire. All other desires go. But now see, you are not enthusiastic about it because we're talking about desires. We don't mean object of desire. In fact, as you reduce the denominator, more of the world comes to you. You know why? Because you have merit, you have the power. You call the shots. You don't believe me? Try it. You know, when you go home this evening, and let's say your favorite food is there, but there is less of it, and everyone likes it. So you go and say, I'm not hungry really, I'll skip dinner. You think the others will say, "Arey, great, let him go to sleep, we'll have the rest." No, you know what they'll do? They'll force you to sit at dinner because they know you're saying this only because there's less of it. So each one will give you a little bit of their share. In the end, you will have more food on your plate than anybody else. Isn't that true? The Piyush is looking like, you don't know my family. But it's a law. I mean, this example may not fit your family, but it is that. The more you say, I don't want, it comes to you. But see, this doesn't mean you just sit back and say, I don't want. You work very hard. And yet, there's nothing that you want. You just find pleasure in the working. It comes to you. If you don't believe me, try it. No? Okay, we all live in housing societies. Huh? You keep contributing to the society. You say, I don't want to be in the managing committee. I don't want any position in the society. I'll just do my work. What will happen? They'll force you to take a position. They'll force you to become secretary, chairman, something or the other. Because you are contributing. So also in the country. So also in the world. That's it. 71.
विहाय कामान्यः सर्वान् पुमांश्चरति निःस्पृहः निर्ममो निरहङ्कारः स शान्तिमधिगच्छति.
That person attains peace who, relinquishing all desires, lives without longing, mindness, or egoism. So you get peace when there is no desire, no longing, no mindness, no egoism. What a state. And here we are just full of it. Full of desire, full of longing. We're constantly longing for something or the other. And there's tremendous possessiveness, mindness. You know, how do you know when somebody has this possessiveness? completely out of context, they will say, like for instance, which is in English incorrect. You will say my son, but if you are referring to his name, like Aditya, in English, you don't say my Aditya, isn't it? But people who are extremely possessive say my Aditya, my Sheetal, my this, my that. Your son doesn't belong to you. Or everyone knows that he's your son. Where is the need to say mine? That mineness destroys you. And ego. Ego is a killer. Ego is giving too much importance to yourself, and it functions as I alone exist, I am supreme, and I am the doer. So all the focus is on just me, me, me. Next verse, 72.
एषा ब्राह्मी स्थितिः पार्थ नैनां प्राप्य विमुह्यति स्थित्वा स्यामन्तकालेऽपि ब्रह्मनिर्वाणमृच्छति.
O Partha, this is the nature of Brahman. Having attained this, nobody is deluded. Remaining in it, one attains nirvana, union with Brahman, even after death. So, he is reiterating that this is the nature of Brahman. Means what? The formula is human being minus desire equals God. We began with that, remember? Once you attain that, you don't fall back. He's assuring us that this is permanent because you have to put in so much effort to get there. And what if you lose it? See, in every other field, you lose it. No? Like Federer, I heard the other day saying, so many youngsters will come and they will perhaps play better than me. Cricketers, scientists, athletes, everyone is going to lose their position, their number one position sometime. But this is something that you never lose. And even after death, it continues. This is the only thing. Your spiritual level is the only thing you carry forward after death. And what are you doing about it? Sweet nothing. What are you investing all your energies in? Acquiring money, which you have to leave behind, right? So, the Bhagavad Gita doesn't say don't acquire worldly things. It says alongside this, spend a little time, a little effort in building your spiritual assets, which you will carry forward. So, Sthita Prajna, what is it? Arjuna asks in verse 54. Krishna answers in verse 55, which is, remember that? The two things. One who completely abandons desires from the mind. This is the negative aspect. The positive aspect is as a result of being established in the Atman, by Atman. Then he explains how sense control is so important. That the senses powerfully drag the mind of even a constantly striving wise person. In verse 60. In 6 verses, he dwells on to emphasize the importance of the intellect. And then says, that mind which has been dragged by the senses now takes away the intellect, and he's already said, buddhi nashat pranashyati. Verse 64, he gives the formula for self-control, which is very, very practical, very important in life. If you don't follow that, what happens? Destruction. And then he gives the example of a tortoise, like you have to If you want to control a particular indulgence, you have to physically abstain from it, keep away from it, at least in the beginning. Then he talks about how there is a demand and supply connection. Where there is a demand, if you have a desire for something, the object appears before you. You rise above the desire, the object goes away. Where? To another person who has the demand. And then he describes that state of realization in 70 and reiterates it 71 and 72. 71 he gives the emphasizes that person with desire, longing, mindness and ego doesn't attain peace. So this is the end.
ॐ तत्सत् इति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासूपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे सांख्ययोगो नाम द्वितीयोऽध्यायः। पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते।